Hey, what is up, everybody? We are now on day 3 of the Halloween movie review series, and I'll start off by saying this. With this series, you're gonna get good ones, you're gonna get bad ones, and you're probably gonna get ones that are in the middle. In this case, this was one that was a total thumbs down. This movie was, it's sucked. And the worst part about this is the movie sucked the whole time. Like, I literally was like 15 minutes in this movie, and I'm like, okay, this movie isn't very good so far. And then I'm like, maybe it's gonna pick up. And then the worse that it got, the longer it went. I think literally when it got into like an hour of this movie, I realized, oh my gosh, I still have 35 minutes left of this crap to sit through. This movie was not good at all. Now, the reason that it's not good isn't the reason that everybody thinks. If everybody has seen this movie and knows what happens in the movie, that's not the only reason I think that this movie sucks. There's other factors at play that makes this movie suck. But let me get right into that. So, this movie, obviously, you can tell from the title, was Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. This movie came out on October 22nd, 1982. This came out immediately following, immediately the year after the first Halloween movie. No, not this first. The second Halloween movie. This was kind of living off that. And this time the budget was the same for Halloween 2. This time the budget was $2.5 million. This was directed by Tommy Lee Wallace, and it was produced, and he also wrote this movie as well. And it was produced by Deborah Hill and John Carpenter, just like they produced the first two. So, I usually don't talk about how this movie became a thing. I usually talk about the movie first, but it kind of ties in with this movie. So, one thing about this movie that you don't want to go back and watch for. Obviously, the first two movies had Michael Myers in them. That was kind of the main story around the first two movies. In this case, he was not shown at all in this movie. This movie was completely different from from the first two movies. There's not a sign, not a mention of Michael Myers, which kind of sucked because I couldn't imagine. Was really into the last two movies after those great movies with the first two Halloweens, and you see Michael Myers, and they finally start to get something going with those stories, and you're wondering how they're gonna follow it up, and then this is how they followed it up. I couldn't imagine being like a fan at the time, wanted to go see this movie, and then finding out that Michael Myers wasn't in it. Now, granted, I'll give them this, that was back before when the Halloween series was just really starting to become a thing. But I don't know. I just couldn't imagine. Maybe maybe it could be a generational thing. But yeah, there's absolutely no Michael Myers in this movie. This is actually the only movie, to my knowledge, that doesn't have him at all. He's not in the movie at all. The only signs you get of Michael Myers is throughout these movies, on a couple of occasions, you see them watching the first Halloween movie. That's it. He's not mentioned. He's not. Yeah, it's in a completely different part because the first movie, because the first two movies take place in Illinois. This movie takes place in like California. And yeah, it sucked that there was absolutely no mention of Michael Myers whatsoever in this movie, kind of, because that's like what the franchise was kind of known for him, and it kind of the way this movie kind of ended, since they didn't really do anything else with it, because obviously the next movie was Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. You could clearly see that the ending kind of didn't really make any sense, considering the fact that nothing happened afterwards. Yeah. So, that sucked that there was absolutely no Michael Myers in this movie. But that's not the only reason that this movie sucked. This movie I'm gonna kind of go into it. So yeah, like I mentioned, this movie takes place in California. Let me make sure I have that right. It actually doesn't. Yeah, Northern California. And this is 8 days. No, this is October 23rd. 8 days before Halloween, and we see this old guy. He's running, like he's trying to get away from somebody, and that's exactly what the case was. We see someone driving in a car. He's hiding from this guy, and at first the guy doesn't see him. He pulls right into the parking lot. He was like in like a old abandoned car shop or something, and he's running like this guy's gonna murder him. Originally, I was hoping this was gonna be Michael Myers, but that wasn't the case. And he gets attacked from behind by some assassin, and he starts choking him. The old guy tries to he ends up pulling a chain that's wrapped around to a cinder block that's wrapped to a car, and he pulls it, and the guy gets the guy choking him gets crushed between the cars. And then we see back at this gas station, somebody's watching a Halloween commercial. This is a Silver Shimbox commercial, where that pretty much hypes up that it's going to be 8 more days till Halloween. Yeah, and that commercial plays a ton of times throughout this movie, except the number changes, obviously. 8 more days till Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. So, and then the guy comes in all frightened, saying that they're coming to kill us all. And obviously, then this guy gets taken to the hospital. We meet the main character. I believe his name was Dr. Shalik. Dr. Chalice. And Dr. Chalice, he was an awful character in this movie. He was supposed to be like this big hero, but yet this guy pretty much cheated on his wife, from what I've gathered from this movie. Him and his wife are no longer together. He doesn't make any time to spend time with his kids. He constantly makes excuses. He is obviously he's an alcoholic, and yeah, he's just a pretty much a piece of shit of a human being. Oh, but that's not all. He does more. Yeah, this old guy gets taken to the hospital, and then the Halloween Silver Shimbox commercial begins to play, and this freaks out this old guy. So yeah, he gets afraid, and he says that they're coming to kill us all, and then he gets put under anesthesia, because Dr. Chalice thinks that this guy is just crazy. So then what happens is Dr. Chalice and the other nurse goes to go off and do something else, and another assassin comes in. Obviously, this was probably a tie-in to what happens earlier in the movie, and he comes in and he pretty much murders this guy. He pretty much holds his nose and mouth shut so he can't breathe, and then when the guy finally dies, he breaks his nose, and Dr. Chalice sees the guy, and he chases after him, but then the guy goes in his car and lights the car on fire and just blows it up and kills himself. Now, this was a ritual, apparently, that they used to do back in the 1960s. This was a suicidal thing, and this is called immolation. But pretty much, it's the act of killing oneself as a sacrifice. He pretty much sacrificed himself. We don't know why he sacrifices himself, but we find out more later on. So then, obviously, the police are investigating this. They think this guy was just clearly on drugs and just came and killed this guy for no reason. The guy's daughter comes, and we find out some more information on this guy. This guy's name was, I believe, Harry Grimmage, and we meet his daughter. Ellie Grimmage, and his daughter sees the dead body and gets horrified about it. And she's upset that she just lost her father. And I believe she was from like Las Vegas. Then Dr. Chalice is out drinking, and the commercial plays again. This was one of the instances where where Halloween 1 played, and Ellie comes in and thanks him for coming to the funeral, and she's trying to find out what's happened to her father, because she knows that he was murdered, and she tries to find out why he was murdered. So she asked Dr. Chalice if his father said anything to him, and he mentions that he was holding this Halloween mask, and he was saying that that someone was coming to kill them all. So then she reveals that he owned a Halloween store that has the Silver Rock, the Silver Shamrock masks that he was one of the masks that he was holding earlier in the movie, and we find out that Harry planned out every event. He had everything written down to the very second of when he was going to do them, and he was supposed to show up on a date, but he no-showed. He pretty much started. Pretty much the last thing that he did was he went to the town. What was the name of the town? I forget the name of it. This is why I have this open. So he went to Santa California to pick up a delivery for masks. So Dr. Shallows and Ellie go to the town, and like I said, this is another instance where Dr. Chadley or Dr. Chalice blows off his kids again, which in this case was actually a good thing. So they leave to go to California. We find out like a ton of history about how this used to be like a factory back in World War II, but then they turned it into like a mask shop. So then they go to this town, and it's completely deserted. Nobody's really everyone's kind of watching them. They're kind of starting to stick out. So they act like they want to see if Ellie wants to see if her father's bed there, but they want to kind of blend in. So they come up with a BS story that they're there to celebrate Halloween together. They pretend to be husband and wife, and they stay at a motel. They meet the motel manager, and Ellie distracts him while Dr. Chalice goes and goes to the motel like office to where you check in, and he sees that Harry actually did stay at that motel, so he knows that he's been there. Then he tells her that, so Ellie wants to stick around to see and ask questions to see if anything happened to her father, and they do this whole kinky stuff where pretty much Dr. Chalice pretty much takes advantage of her, and they pretty much have sex. I thought it was kind of a dirty thing for Dr. Chalice to do. He clearly was trying to do it. I've watched the scene maybe 3 times now, and yeah, he was a awful piece of shit of a character. And then we find out apparently that in this town you have a curfew. You have to be off the streets at 6 p.m. Obviously, Dr. Chalice didn't know this, so then he went to some old homeless drunk guy, and he pretty much tells him, because we find out about Mr. Cochran. He's like the owner of the town. He's the owner of the factory, and this he's the person that gets all the masks from. Ellie sees him like earlier in the movie driving in a car, and he pretty much talks about how he's had all these factory workers, but he didn't give him a job. And I think we were supposed to have thought that this was a guy that was clearly drunk, just ranting and raving for no reason. So then something else we all find out is this place has TV cameras just watching the whole town. So obviously this gets overheard, and these two guys come up and rip this guy's head off. Obviously we're supposed to assume that these guys are inhuman, because how the hell is he just able to rip his head off? Because earlier in this movie, I forgot to mention this, Dr. Chalice goes to see his friend Teddy, who is like a scientist and is going to be looking at these cow posts, and he wants to investigate why that murder took place, because he doesn't think it made any sense that guy was on drugs, because he clearly knew what he was doing. So she does so, and he was actually had the hots for her. So I think he pretty much just cheated on Teddy with Ellie, which was weird. Then throughout the movie we meet some characters. We meet Buddy. We meet I have them written down. We meet Buddy, Comfort. We meet the Comfort family: Buddy, Betty, and Buddy Jr. And then we meet another person, Marge, and these are all people that own different factory stores that have these same masks that Harry had. So obviously there's a tie-in here. And Marge, introduces herself to Ellie, talks about her store, and she thinks that she's there to pick up an order, because that's why she's staying at this motel, and she tells her about her factory and everything, about how it's in Missouri, I think it was, and then she reveals that like the button, the label of the mask just popped right off, because her son threw it at the wall. So then she goes in her room, and as Dr. Chatzels and Dr. Chalice and Ellie are having sex, Marge starts playing around with this, with like the symbol, and a laser beam goes off and destroys her. Like it turns her face into like metal. It looked pretty bad. I didn't really think this was a very good scene. It looked pretty bad, and it made no sense. And it just was it was dumb. This concept is dumb. So obviously, then she gets taken away to the hospital. Dr. Chalice wants to know what happened, but Mr. Cochran won't tell him what happened. He just pretty much says that she's being examined by the finest doctors ever. And obviously we're supposed to think that something suspicious happens, because then we overhear him say like, what happened, and then the motel manager says that there was a misfire. So obviously then we're supposed to think that something suspicious happened. Throughout this movie, Dr. Chalice continues to call Teddy about what happened. Teddy pretty much reveals that when you examine these posts, it's almost like there was nobody in here at all, because it's all just machines. You don't see any ounce of corpses or anything. And then later, and he wants her to look up some information on Mr. Cochran. So then Dr. Chalice and Ellie go to the factory to see if there was any, if the order got picked up, to see what happened to Harry, her father, and the secretary does not recall any of the events. She reveals that the order was picked up, and then Mr. Cochran comes out, and the Kopfer family comes out, and we found out that he's like one of the that Buddy was one of the best sellers. He sold the most masks out of everybody, and Mr. Cochran shows how much of a nice guy, and pretty much everybody, these people worship Mr. Cochran. They think we find out that he has made all these toys, all these nuts and gags, like sticky toilet paper and all that stuff. And Mr. Cochran offers him a tour. He even offers to give Dr. Chalice and Ellie free masks, which was bad because they completely made up what the last names was. I think it was like Smith or something. The family's getting a tour. He gives his son, Buddy Jr. one of the silver hemlock masks, more on that later. I don't even know where to begin with that. So and Buddy Jr. was kind of a brat, and Buddy himself was super excited, very enthusiastic, and his wife kind of was a bitch. So Buddy wants to see, there's like this room that you're not supposed to go in that says I forget what it says, but it pretty much says do not go here, but it doesn't say that. And Buddy wants to know what's in there. Mr. Cochran just says that it's just some secret stuff we use to make the mask. No one can go in there because of chemicals and everything. And then Betty is telling Ellie all about Mr. Cochran. Pretty much the same thing that Buddy just says to Dr. Chalice. And then Dr. Chalice and Ellie are walking around the factory, outside of the factory, and Ellie sees that her father's car gets pulled in one of the rooms, and she freaks out. And obviously then this is when she starts to realize something suspicious. The town clearly obviously knows. I didn't mention that Dr. Chalice and Ellie are obviously here to investigate and see what's going on with this town, because when Dr. Chalice was talking to Teddy on the phone, we see that the hotel room was bugged so they could hear his conversation. And then they try to leave because they start to get suspicious. Dr. Chalice is going to go call the cops. When he tries to go through the operator, you can't through, the phones aren't working, which obviously was very fitting. And then Dr. Chalice, when he goes back to the room, he sees that something's happened to Ellie, so he goes in the room. About 5 guys pop out, and they're gonna kidnap Dr. Chalice, and he escapes. He takes off. He hides through he hides in a telephone booth and stuff like that to escape these people. And then he sees Ellie get kidnapped and taken into the factory. He tries to call the operator again, doesn't go through. So then he goes in the factory to investigate to see what's happened to Ellie and everything. And when he goes into the room, he sees an old woman knitting, and he tries to ask what happened to Ellie. But then when he when he rips off the head, it's revealed to just be just a robot. So then Dr. Chalice continues to investigate, and then he gets attacked by one of the robots. He throws him into the up over a couple of boxes that had masks in them, and Dr. Chalice is trying to fight back, but this guy isn't fazed by any of his strikes. So then eventually Dr. Chalice is about to be choked, but then he starts to fight back, and he punches right through this guy's chest, this guy's stomach, and yellow foam, like it's supposed to be blood, comes out of this guy's mouth. And we find out that this wasn't a guy, this was a robot. And I guess Dr. Chalice got so weak about this fight, Mr. Cochran and a couple of other robots kidnap him, and then Mr. Cochran reveals his master plan pretty much. He reveals that he has this Stone Age rock that, because he takes them back, and reveals that these are robots because they were his henchmen. They do everything they say, and they actually legit do not even look like robots. You kind of knew they were robots because they did things that humans wouldn't normally do, like the way they broke Harry's nose, the way they were just able to rip off that old drunk guy's head. So you could kind of tell that these guys weren't human. So yeah. So then he reveals that he built this factory. There's a ton of TV commercials, and throughout this movie, they kept talking about how there's going to be this big giveaway. So they have the Stone Age walk that's helping set up all these TV cameras so that way they can shoot this commercial they have to do. And what's going to happen in this commercial is he shows a demonstration. He has the Kupfer family come in, and they were supposed to test out the commercial. The commercial comes on, and at this point, this is like one more day to Halloween. Buddy Jr. puts on his mask, and the commercial plays, and he falls to the floor. And I'm not making this up. His head inflates, and a bunch of insects and snakes and rodents pop right out of his mask, like he died or something. And Betty faints because of this. Buddy tries to escape, and he gets bitten by a snake. And obviously Betty's not going to make it because she's getting bitten by snakes as well. And this scene was dumb. This was stupid. And it just was... It was just an awful scene, and it was an awful story for the movie. So then Teddy continues to investigate this the whole Mr. Cochran thing. He tries to call She tries to call Dr. Chalice. Doesn't pick up. Well, no, that doesn't go through. So then she tries to call the cops, and she realizes what's going on. One of the robots pops up behind, or android robots, same thing, pops up and drives a what's it called? A power tool. I forget what it's. A drill. It drives a drill right into a head, which you didn't get to see, but that was a fine scene, I guess. And then Dr. Chalice has been strapped to a like one of those box things that you use to he's been pretty much strapped to a roller, pretty much. One of those roller things that you use to carry big boxes if you're carrying beer or something. And pretty much Mr. Cochran reveals that he did this. The reason that he's doing all this commercial stuff is because the whole town is an Irish town, pretty much. Everybody's from Ireland down there, which is very uncommon to see, I guess. And he reveals pretty much he's doing this for witchcraft, pretty much. That every year you have to sacrifice somebody during Halloween season. It was a pretty stupid reason, because this is like back in like when he was a kid, back in the old days, and yeah, this is just dumb. So throughout this movie, everybody is bought in these masks, so pretty much everyone's fucked at 9 o'clock. So he puts the mask onto Dr. Chalice, and Dr. Chalice, though, is able to break the TV, and he cuts himself free. He escapes through the docks. Well, he puts the mask over the camera so that way we can't see it, and Mr. Cochran gets a phone call about his masks and everything. Then one of the robots comes up and reveals what happened, and Dr. Chalice goes all around the building and goes and gets Ellie, who was just strapped down on a table, and he's able to free her. And then they go off, and he grabs a bunch of he puts the commercial on and grabs a bunch of those silver symbol those because in there that contain microchips to that would turn these people into the rodents and stuff, and this causes the androids to malfunction, and this causes the Stone Age thing that was powering this system to malfunction, and the whole building burns down. But they still have the problem that the commercial's still gonna air, so they have to go try to stop that. Ellie is revealed to be an android herself, which I totally saw coming a mile away. She attacks Dr. Chalice, which I kind of feel bad because he pretty much just had sex with a robot. She attacks him, and she beats him up, but Dr. Chalice drives the car right into the tree, and he pretty much this causes Ellie to fall apart, and she's able to move her head, and he tries to escape, but then she chokes him with her arm, chokes him, and he's able to just toss his arm across like the woods, into the woods, and then he takes a tire iron and attacks just Ellie's body, and then he's able to make it on foot to the gas station. He sees the same guy that was in the beginning of the movie that took Harry to the hospital, and Dr. Chalice tries to warn the television, the guy running the TV, pretty much warns the television runner, the guy that's making all these commercial pumps up to cut the TV, but of course he doesn't believe him. At first he cuts it on the first couple of stations, a kid comes in and watches it, and then he doesn't cut it on the third station, and the guy then said, stop it, come on, stop it, there's no time. And of course it doesn't get stopped, and that's how the movie ends. So pretty much we're supposed to assume that this failed and everybody died in California. And that was the end of the movie. I will say this, I didn't really mind the ending too much. You know, sometimes I do like the fact that sometimes the hero fails, and I don't mind that ending. You know, very rare you see that in an ending. It just kind of sucks because he really wasn't much of a hero because he was a huge dick throughout this movie. So, this movie, this movie sucked. It would have been awesome, actually. I know this wouldn't have made any sense if Michael Myers randomly popped up and just killed a bunch of robots. But this movie didn't really suck because there wasn't Michael Myers in it. It sucked because the story sucked. You know, the whole thing is, Mr. Cochran wants to, he wants to, have a sacrifice, but he pretty much is killing off everybody that could possibly sell and buy his masks. He killed off his best seller. Like, he sold like the most masks out of everybody, and he killed him because he wanted to make a sacrifice. Like, it was stupid. The characters in this movie sucked. I think Dr. Chalice sucked. Ellie, I didn't really think was that great of a character. Mr. Cochran wasn't that bad, but he wasn't that great. All of the Cupler family were awful characters. Marge wasn't too bad, but she wasn't really in the movie enough to really judge. The motel manager sucked. Most of everybody in this movie was not fit. It wasn't that the acting was bad, it's just that the characters sucked. It's a big difference. And yeah, it was really hard for me to buy that Dr. Chalice was this big hero after seeing all the bad stuff that he does. You know, doesn't make any time for his kids, all that stuff. It was just stupid. I definitely think having Michael Myers not in it definitely was an effect as well. Some of the effects in this movie look dumb, like the robots when the yellow stuff would pop out just look so stupid. The way that one of the robots ripped off that old drunk guy's head just looked so fake. I know, in the Halloween movies, because when Michael Myers kills people, some of it's supposed to look fake, but at least when he does it, it looks actually cool. Like when he drowned Jade, I forget her name now off the top of my head, in the hot tub, that actually looked like she was actually being drowned in the hot tub. I'll say this, at least this movie had a Halloween theme to it. You know, it had to do with Halloween, I'll give it that, but yeah, this was just stupid. That cartoon, that commercial song, I can't get that out of my head now, and it was so annoying, and yet it was so catchy at the same time. This movie sucked. I can't really think of anything really redeeming about it, because I was bored with this movie within the first 15 minutes. The robot's strength was okay. Like when he came in and broke Harry's nose and just murdered him. I guess driving the joke through Teddy's head. But, the characters sucked. The story sucked. And yeah, that's about it for the movie. So if I had to grade this movie overall, out of 10, it wasn't good at all. I want to give it a 4 out of 10. Because this movie just sucked. and for the factors at play. It's not just because Michael Myers wasn't in it, even though that's also a reason I'm giving it that it sucked. But those other factors, the characters, the story. So certain scenes, the way they looked, done very well, and yeah, it was just dumb. Let me talk about the cast. So Dr. Daniel Chalice was played by Tom Atkins. I'm just gonna read who played who because I've been finding when I say what the other stuff have been in, the video just drags. So, Ellie Grimbridge, Grimbridge was it's Grimbridge actually. Sorry, Ellie Grimbridge was played by Stacey Nelkin. Connor Cochran was played by Daniel Hurley. I don't know how to say his last name. Rafferty was played by Michael Curry. I had no clue who that was. I was trying to look it up, but this is the motel manager. Buddy Kopfer was played by Ralph Straight. Betty Kopfer was played by Jaden Balbo. And then Buddy Kopfer Jr. was played by Jad Schachter. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing the names. I'm not very good at reading sometimes. Marge Gutman was played by Gon Stevens. It's definitely Stevens. Harry Grimmage was played by Al Berry. Teddy was played by Wendy Wesberg. Walter Jones was played by Essex Smith. I believe Walter Jones, he was one of the androids. I forget which one he was because when I looked him up, that's on Google. That's what he popped up. Linda Chalice, which is Dr. Chalice's wife, was played by Nancy Kyes. Stalker was played by Jonathan Terry. I have no clue who that is. I don't know if that's the old guy from the older movie. Nurse Agnes, this is the nurse familiar in the movie, was played by Maddie Norman. The secretary from the factory was played by Patty Edwards. Willie Chalice, who's Dr. Chalice's son, is played by Joshua John Miller. Bella Chalice, who's Dr. Chalice's daughter, is played by Michelle Walker. Assassin Android, which I'm assuming is the android that kills Harry in the beginning of the movie, is played by Dick Warlock. And then curfew announcer / telephone operator, who has an uncredited voice, is played by Jamie Lee Curtis. And then the Silver Shamrock commercial announcer was played by Tommy Lee Wallace. This movie, it actually drew a great number of box office draws. It drew $14 million. And that's not really that impressive, I guess. I don't know if it's... I wonder if a lot of people didn't go see it because Michael Myers wasn't in it. But like I said, I didn't mention this, but John Carpenter and Deborah Hill were not going to do this movie because they didn't want Michael Myers to be in this movie again. This movie gets very mixed reviews. Some people like it, some people hate it. I feel like this movie could be a generational thing because if you've only seen like the Michael Myers version of the Halloween movies but didn't see this movie, then I can understand why you'd hate it. Because if I had probably watched this movie back in the 80s before Michael Myers became like this huge Halloween franchise star, maybe I would have liked it. But I mean, the movie still sucked anyways. That movie wasn't good. I gave other reasons why it sucked. The storyline, the actors played their roles well. It was just the characters that they had to play that sucked. You can only play your character so well, but if the character still sucks, it still sucks. Just a lot of the scenes didn't look good. A lot of the effects I didn't look very good. There's other things I think. Is there anything else I need to? Yeah, but like I said, I'm surprised I got a mixed reaction. That's pretty much it for the review series. This review. Like I said, this movie gets a 4 out of 10. I don't know if there's gonna be a Halloween that's gonna get worse than this one, and if there's one that's worse than this one, then this might not even be the worst one, so let's hope not. I'm going to say this. Michael Myers definitely was a contributing factor to why this movie sucked. Because this movie was so bad, they went and made Halloween 4, and it's called The Return of Michael Myers. They had to pretty much let people know that Michael Myers is going to be in this one. So, what does that say? Like, I wouldn't, yeah, it was, that just shows you how bad this movie failed. That people didn't want to see this. They wanted to see Michael Myers. So, yeah, but that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you guys for watching this video. Please make sure you guys like, comment, and share this video. Please make sure you guys subscribe to this channel for more Halloween movie review series and other videos on this channel. And make sure you guys click on the bell so that way every time you upload one of those videos, you guys will get the notification for it. And make sure you guys also subscribe and click on the bell for the CM Brothers channel. And that's pretty much it, guys. Talk to you later.